UIC. Freedom the people of need. Hell yeah. Freedom the people of need. Yeah, yeah. Freedom the people of want. Freedom the people of need. Yeah, yeah. Freedom the people of want. Freedom the people of need. Yeah, yeah. Freedom the people of want. Freedom the people of need. Yeah, yeah. Real man a road. Now bow wolf in a tree grand a road. Now bow down to no demon a road. UIC when you see man a road, me say yeah. Real man a road. Now bow wolf in a tree grand a road. Now bow down to no demon a road. UIC when you see man a road. Ready for broke every chain. That when you free up the people, levitate. Jamaica member, you ever great. I feel burn up the fire upon every snake. Me give thanks in every way. God still a look down once we safe. UIC run the road long time. GLP and PMP I sell we out. Till I do the test even though we know the end result. If them coulda keep.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to another edition of UIC Liberty TV. I'm Joseph Patterson, president of UIC Jamaica, and tonight we're going to be hearing from our General Secretary, Chase Niel. He's having some technical difficulties coming on tonight, so I'm going to hold down the fort for him until he gets in. So let me just say a big thanks to all of you who are here with us night after night as we share interesting topics. Tonight's topic is going to be why them hate Africa so much. Real education now. So I'm excited, just as you, to hear and listen to what Mr. Chase Niel has to share with us. But while we're waiting for him to come, let's take this opportunity to like, share, comment, and if you have not yet done so, to subscribe to UIC Liberty TV. And please, it's very, very important that you hit the notification bell so that you will be notified as soon as we have new content for you. Welcome, Lion Rule the Jungle. You know, you're always the first person on every single night. Lion Rule the Jungle, you are the first person on the live. So big up to you. I wish I had a gift I could give you for always being number one. Thank you for being on. And Poshan Elliott, you're also normally here as well. So welcome, Miss Elliott. Glad to see you present for class. Liddy Williams, welcome to you as well for being on. And guess what? I am seeing that Mr. Chase is in the house. So good night. Good night, Mr. Chase Niel. Good to see you on. Looking forward to the presentation, sir.
All right. It's good to be here. Thank you for starting class for me, sir.
No problem. So I'm going to jump off now. So good luck, and I'll be watching from the wings.
All right. Great.
Take care.
All right. Take care, sir. All right. Good night, good evening, good morning, Jamaicans at home and abroad. All right. Welcome to. So we're looking at how them wicked to Africa. We see that Africa isn't spoken about in our schools, and because we don't know our African heritage, we don't know our power as African people. We allow those in power and people from other nations to take advantage of us. So tonight we'll be looking at the education system, real education. All right, so welcome to all who have joined. I heard Mr. Patterson bigging up some people, so I extend those that welcome to. Welcome Desmond, Douglas. Yes, Lion, see you here again, Lady, Cardell, Wade Noble. All right. Now, there have been in the newspapers that have caused great concern to me. We see headlines where 400 teachers are leaving the country. 400 teachers are leaving the country. And our Minister of Education is okay. She's like, don't worry. Just today, we see where 16 teachers have resigned from Campion College. That news came out today. Wow! So that's adding to the 600 teachers who will not be in school um, when school reopens just a number of weeks from now. We see also where the Ministry of Education is doing away with the bursa paid system in the schools. Now, what is really happening to our education field? Now, all of this together makes me wonder whether all of this is coincidence or planned. Now, to explain the significance of the bursa system, often teachers who apply for a job who are new to teaching don't get paid for as long as sometimes 3 months, some as long as 8 months, 8 months without pay. No, what happens in this case is that schools that have bursars allow the bursars to pay the teachers until the ministry sends their salary. This has happened to me, by the way. When I started teaching at high school in 2007, yes, I the ministry did not send my salary for 3 months straight. How did I go to school? My school bursar. So what the bursar did, um, really, is take from the school's account and pay the teacher, whether fully, if the school can afford that, or a part of the pay. Then when the ministry finally sends the teacher's salary, they recover it in increments. And this is how some of our teachers are able to to fund themselves while they go to work. When I went to another school, it took 8 months, 8 full months before the ministry would send my salary. And I know the same has happened to a teacher with master's degree who teaches in the Clarendon area. She could not get her salary for 8 months. And she went to university to get her master's degree. But how was she saved? The bursary. No, the ministry wants to do away with that. No. As Lily said, that is ridiculous. What is it that the ministry is really thinking about? We see that as far as we can see, the minister and the Ministry of Education is playing with our lives. They're playing with our future because education is the future of the nation. It is how we will drive industry. It is how we will teach our students how to be productive citizens. If education not going good, how anything else can go on good? We see this mandatory 2 years program that they're coming in with, where students have to stay an extra 2 years in school, whether or not they have plans to filter into a job or university. We see that as really stupid and careless. The JTC bill, where a lot of teachers now will be cut out of if this were to be passed. Well, because the bill is not passed and teachers are leaving. Either way, the system does not care for our teachers. And we see now teachers may be losing hope of pay because Bursa won't be there again if the ministry follows up on what they're saying. But I want to make something clear. This is not the first time that our elected representatives have played with our education and mash up the system and mash up the country. Now, I'm going to be sharing a video with you. It was done by a member of the education committee. In fact, you would have met him before, Jason Christie, on a live with Mr. Patterson. All right, so we're going to be listening to this video and see how they mash up Jamaica by mashing up education. All right, we talk after.
In the year 1953, Jamaica, for the first time, elected Jamaican ministers to run the government, and Bustamante became the first chief minister of the country. It was the first time Jamaicans were completely in the driver's seat of the nation. They had something to prove to the colonial masters. Up to that point in our history, only 1% of the Jamaican population was enrolled in high school. Armed with a zeal to prove that Jamaica could manage its own affairs, the nation went into a productivity overdrive, with emphasis placed on its technical capabilities. The College of Arts, Science and Technology, CAST, was established, known today as UTEC, leading the way for technological advancement in the nation Marcus Garvey dreamt, as well as technical high schools to feed students into the CAST. Schools such as Kingston Technical, Homewood Technical, Dintil Technical, and St. Elizabeth Technical were all fashioned with a modern science curriculum and would be the factories that fed students into the College of Arts, Science and Technology. Approaching the 1960s, Jamaicans were staffing the bauxite industry with competent graduates, and within the period from 1953 to 1963, the Jamaican economy grew faster than the economy of every developing nation in the world. That's how eager the leaders back then were in proving they could govern the country. The growth in Jamaican education and the Jamaican economy was so impressive that in 1966, the World Bank selected Jamaica for a very special loan for educational purposes. At that time, it was 0.35 Jamaican pounds to $1. In other words, 35 cents to $1. The loan amount was 9.5 million US dollars, which in today's currency would be approximately 11.5 billion Jamaican dollars. Between the periods of 1953 to 1966, Jamaica spent 4.5 million US dollars on its high school capacity. Therefore, the loan of 9.5 million would significantly increase the number of high schools. By this time, the high school enrollment rate was just above 50%, with a growing population of 1.78 million people. Jamaica needed more schools to train its people so that it could realize its potential productivity. So the school building program began with an ambition to build 50 additions with the 9.5 million US loan from the World Bank, and additional primary schools with 6.5 million Jamaican pound. This was Jamaica's chance to expand its education system and cater to the needs of all its citizens efficiently. But this endeavor turned out to be a complete train wreck. It all started when Dr. Burt was given supreme command of the school building program by the Minister of Education, Edwin Allen, in 1970. Dr. Burt was the then Minister of State in the Ministry of Education and would give financial recklessness and misuse public funds a whole new meaning. Starting with the primary school building program, within the first 6 months of the program, approximately 4 billion of the 6.5 was spent, but not one school was completely erected. The Ministry of Education forwarded a memorandum to the Ministry of Finance, begging them for additional provisions, as they had entered into binds totaling 14.5 million US dollars, which was more than 2 times what was provisioned for the primary school building program. What led to this overspending was the complete disregard for financial controls in the entire contracting process. The Acosta report clearly outlined this following. Contracts for designing, building, and managing the projects were awarded on a partisan basis, deeply rooted in nepotism and political affiliations. The Ministry of Education was slammed for their utter recklessness, financial impudence, and total disregard for public funds. But wait, there's more.
All right. Oh, there we go.
All right. It seemed the video finished prematurely. All right, there were some other things that we had wanted to show, but seems we had some problems there. But what you would have seen is that Jamaica was on its way to prosperity. Jamaica was on its way to one of the leading countries in the world, to be one of the leading countries in the world. But guess what? Because of financial mismanagement and politics, what had happened is the gentleman who, or I shouldn't even say gentleman, the man who was given the mandate to build the schools gave contracts out to friend and company who were part of the same party because of political affiliations and corruption. We we wasted all that cash, we wasted all that money, and less than half of the schools that were supposed to be built were built. All of that money went into the pockets of the politicians and those who were loyal to their party. And we had to be asking for two times that I said we because it's still being paid on by Jamaicans, our loan. We had to be asking for twice the amount of the grant that was originally given to us. And what that meant now is that less than half our schools were built. We use off all the money and asked for more, and still we did not come through with building the schools. Why? Because of corruption and because of the partisan politics which exist to this date. And so this resulted in schools being overcrowded as they are now. This resulted in the number of technical schools that were supposed to be built not being built. By the way, the building of the technical schools were inspired by Marcus Garvey, who had proposed way before we got our so-called independence that the way to really get the black man to succeed was through education, and through technical schools we would build technical skills that would enable us to become a world-class country. The schools weren't built. Schools that were built became overcrowded, and so everything had to be rushed, and the debt that produced carries on to this moment, and is one of the chief reasons why we are an indebted country. And all of this was because we have allowed politicians to do as they will, and we have not educated ourselves as a people as to how politics really works. I've always said Jamaica is a very political country, but we do not understand politics. And the leaders, they revel in this because they have not tried to teach us the real purpose of a politician. We think to give we a thing, but the MP is somebody who advocates on our behalf, who looks at our issues and concerns and brings them to Parliament, and they should, they are supposed to plan policies that will create the environment for us to succeed and to make plans that will push forward the country. But no, we take politicians nowadays to be genies. Ask us something, then give it. But that's not the role of a politician. The politician is an advocate. Mr. Patterson likes to say the politicians are our lawyers. They speak on our behalf, work on our behalf. They are not supposed to pay us, but we pay them through our taxes. But because of political mismanagement and we not holding the politicians to account, the education system get mashed up, getting stressed nowadays because from that time ago, the politicians have been playing with education, and even now they're playing with education. What is this? 400 teachers are leaving, and instead of giving them a compensation that makes it worthy to stay. We hear statements of arrogance like a certain mayor calling people cowards if they migrate. Then if you see opportunity over there to benefit yourself and your country is not paying you enough, you can hardly survive. Is that cowardly to look out for yourself and go where you can better live an acceptable life? We hear the current minister telling teachers they need to learn financial literacy. That is not acceptable. So I saw a meme going out where on one the meme is divided into on one side the government suggests that teachers must buy stocks, and then a PNP senator came out with a number of suggestions that the opposition put forward, like making loans more affordable and so forth. The problem with that is that we are depending on government to give something to the teachers, but not to create a way for the teachers to empower themselves. It is a dangerous precedent that we have taken to let ourselves relax and depend on the politicians to do everything for us. What about empowering us to make us better? So to make this point clearer, we are going to look at what you really get when you hear about getting things free. I know we like to hear about free education, we like to hear about free health, and so forth. But when the state gives you things free, what is it that you really get? All right, check out this video.
America is many things to many people. To a 17-year-old kid, it's the malt shop on the corner. To Grandpa, it's the front porch in the cool of the evening. To Mother and her family, it's church on Sunday morning. And to Dad, it's his favorite relaxation. It's the Cracker Barrel philosophers in Crabtree Corners. And it's the tycoons in Wall Street. It's all races, creeds, and religions. It's freedom to work at the job you like. Freedom of speech and to peaceably assemble. Freedom to own property. Security from unlawful search or seizure.
Where's your warrant, Flatfoot?
The right to a speedy and public trial. Protection against cruel punishments and excessive fines. The right to vote. And to worship God in your own way. It is these freedoms that have made America strong.
Okay, so we got our freedom. But management's lousing up everything.
Labor is fault. It's ruining the country.
My constituents, as your elected representative, I can assure you Labor's right, management's right. I'm strictly neutral.
Labor, management, politicians, phooey. They can't tell corn from oats.
It only takes money out of
Hurry, step right up, folks. Here's the answer to your problems. Dr. Utopia's sensational new discovery, ism. Ism will cure any ailment of the body politic. It's terrific. It's tremendous. Once you swallow the contents of this bottle, you'll have the bountiful benefit of higher wages, shorter hours, and security. Enormous profits, no strikes. Remember, you're the big boss. Government control, no worry about votes, name your own salary, bigger crops, lower costs. Why, ism even makes the weather perfect every day. And now then, because we are introducing this amazing item for the first time in this country, it isn't going to cost you 1 cent. All you have to do is sign this little scrap of paper, and you get your bottle absolutely free.
I hereby turn over to ISM Incorporated everything I have, including my freedom and the freedom of my children and my children's children, in return for which said ISM promises to take care of me forever.
Get out of the way!
Pardon me.
And who are you, my good man?
I'm John Q. Public.
Ah, my fine friend, you're just in time to share this generous and gigantic offer. Sign right here.
Mind if I read it first?
Hurry up,
Keep your shirts on, boys. Including my freedom. Freedom? Well, sign away my freedom. Why, this is ridiculous.
Don't be corny, brother.
Sure, our system of free enterprise isn't perfect. But before we throw it away for some imported double talk, let's turn the clock back a few years to see what it's done for us. For example, back in the 1890s, Joe Dokes was just a guy who liked to tinker around his barn. Some people thought Joe was lazy. Some even thought he was nuts. But one day, he had an idea. And because he was free to dream his dream and tinker, Joe had a chance to make something of himself and his idea. So, of course, some people didn't think so much of Joe's idea. But that didn't stop him. So Joe got some money from young Aunt Minnie and Uncle Angus and Grandpappy and Mr. Titus. When Joe's friends and relatives used their savings to help him buy tools and property, they were capitalists. Don't blush, folks. It's nothing to be ashamed of. Now, naturally, Joe needed some help. So he hired Willie Lumpkin, who was out of work anyway, and before long, Willie had the know-how and became skilled labor. Because capital, management, and labor worked together, Joe's idea grew. It grew and did things even he never dreamed of. Today, the automobile industry provides millions of jobs that never existed before. And remember, this is a story of only one industry. There are thousands more scattered all over the United States whose history of development is pretty much the same. We've built a country under the American system that sends more young people to high school and college than all the rest of the world combined. Why, even in the Depression, our wages bought more food, clothing, travel, and entertainment than the wages of any other people in the world. Our country has a national income equal to the total national incomes of any other 6 nations in the world. With only 7% of the Earth's people, we drive 70% of the world's automobiles. That's just a sample of the things the capitalistic system has given us in only 160 years. Before signing up, you boys ought to try a little taste of Dr. Ism's formula to see what you'd get in exchange for your freedom. Go ahead, try it.
You can't do this to me! I'll strike!
The state forbids strikes.
Wait till the union hears about this!
Ah, yes, the union. Welcome to our ranks, number 1313.
I'll take this case to the Supreme Court.
The state is the Supreme Court. Our decision is as follows. No more private property. No more you.
The farm folk will put a stop to this.
Farmers don't vote anymore.
What'll they do for seed next year?
You won't have to worry about next year. The state will do your planning from now on.
We must fight to regain our freedom, or everything is lost. Everything.
Everything is fine. Everything is fine. Everything is fine. Everything is fine. Everything is fine.
When anybody preaches disunity, tries to pit one of us against the other through class warfare, race hatred, or religious intolerance, you know that person seeks to rob us of our freedom and destroy our very lives. And we know what to do about it.
Now, gentlemen, no violence, please. Don't throw those bottles. Don't throw those bottles. No! Oh, no! No! Hey! Oh! Oh! Hey! Oh!
Working together to produce an ever greater abundance of material and spiritual values for all. That is the secret of American prosperity.
All right, the American propaganda aside, we don't want to pay attention to that part because they had their agenda when they created that video. What I want us to pay attention to is what happened when the gentlemen decided to give the government their freedom so that they get things free. What happens when we rely on our government for free education, free health care? It means that they control what we learn, they control what we or how we are treated, they control everything, and in the end, they control us. Right now, so they control our money. So what has happened over the years in Jamaica is that we have trusted the government to take care of us. We don't have to worry about anything. They'll take care of it. And we see how the priority that they give to the areas of life that affect us. But while we could look at how the government is failing in crime, for example, or the government is failing in the area of health, what we really want to focus on today is education. In the first video, we see where the government from the inception of independence, when we were poised for greatness, when the entire world was looking at Jamaica and the potential that we had, they shut the thing by wasting the money. From then until now, it has been lip service. Education has not been a priority of the administration. Whether it's the JLP or the PNP, education is not a priority. And what has occurred now is a failing society because our people do not know how to think. Let me give you an example. We went to St. Thomas some weeks ago to share about the UIC. And one young lady told me that she'll vote for a particular party, even if them are do bad and them are mash up the country. What kind of logic is that? That makes no sense at all. Our ability to think is stunted, and that the kind of crime and violence we see every day. People are unable to think through conflicts. They're unable to think through their differences without resorting to violence and force. Why is that? We can say it's because of the home and because there's loss in values in the home. But think about it. Where did where did they not learn how to think from? The education system is that part of the country that not only teaches subject matter, but supposed to support critical thinking, higher level thoughts. If that is not occurring, we pass out a country of dunces. And not to be feisty or rude or to make anyone feel offended. The fact of the matter is that our people are not able to think critically because our schools are not equipped to teach children how to think critically. Nor are teachers, nor are teachers equipped to think critically and to teach children to think critically. So we are left in a state of desperation. Now, our quality of education is low, but also the compensation for our teachers is low. The care and consideration for our teachers is non-existent. We heard the Prime Minister come out recently and say that the teachers migrating should be looked at, may be looked at as a good thing, because we as a nation can capitalize on that by training teachers for them to go to other nations. But I'd like to now quote a great gentleman who we have been sleeping on, who we have not been paying attention to, the right excellent Mosiah Garvey. He said, any leadership that teaches you to depend on another race is a leadership that will enslave you. All right, and we're going to go to Marcus Garvey in a while. But before we go to Marcus Garvey, hold the video there. Before we go to Marcus Garvey, I want you to pay attention. I want you to look at these words. Any leadership that will lead you to depend on another race lead you to slavery. No, we have been depending on America, on Canada, on UK to live good in Jamaica. If we are not leaving to go over there ourselves, we are depending on remittance money from those who have gone over. Our teachers, to make a sensible living, have to be depending on another country to live properly. That makes no sense at all. So, are not our leaders right now leading us to slavery? We are depending too much on China. We are depending too much on the United States. We're depending too much on other countries. And is this a fault of our people? There's a saying by John Maxwell, everything rises and falls on leaders. Let us look at, Mr. Patterson likes to look at Singapore, right? But if we look at other countries, um, like Rwanda, for example, Rwanda got independence the same year as Jamaica. We got independence on August 6th. They got independence on July 1, 1962. Now, that country is creating cell phones, launching satellites, and so forth with less resources than we have. We have more agricultural resources than Rwanda has. But what was the difference? The type of leadership. Now, we have too much on the goodwill of our politicians. And we see that they have no goodwill at all because the education system is suffering. Now, what are we going to do about it? Are we just going to sit down and let them mash up the country, mash up the education system, disrespect our teachers and cause a brain drain? No, Marcus Garvey has some choice words to say, and it's a pity that he's not taught in our schools. Because if Marcus Garvey were taught in our schools, our children would know what it means to be black and powerful. Our people would have seized the reins of power for themselves and been much more successful. So let us listen to Marcus Garvey for a while and hear what he has to say about us.
Did not suffer an eye to give me an education to slight, oppress, or discourage my people. Because whatsoever education I acquired out of their sacrifice of over 300 years, salvation of the million black people of the world, and the day I forsake my people, may God Almighty say there shall be no more light. I unequivocally rejected the racist assumption of much white American Christianity, namely that God had created the black man inferior and that he had intended Negroes to be a servant class, hewers of wood and drawers of water. Well, I predicated my view of man on the doctrine of Imago Dei. All men, regardless of color, are created in the image of God. Now, from this premise followed the equality of all men and the brotherhood of all men. The biblical injunction of Acts 17:26 reminds us that he created of one blood all nations of men that dwell on the face of the earth. I was most interested in brotherhood within his own race, because if Negroes are created in God's image and Negroes are black, then God must in some sense be black. If the white man has the idea of a white God, let him worship his God as he desires. We have found a new ideal, because whilst our God has no color, and yet it is human to see everything through one's own spectacles, and since the white people have seen their God through their white spectacles, we have only now started to see our God through our own spectacles. But we believe in the God of Ethiopia, the everlasting God, God of Father, God of Son, God of Holy Ghost, the one God of all ages. That is the God in whom we believe, but we shall worship him through the spectacles of Ethiopia. For 250 years we have struggled under the burden and rigors of slavery. We were maimed, we were brutalized, we were ravaged. We are men. We have hopes, we have passions, we have feelings, we have desires just like any other race. The cry is raised all over the world of Canada for the Canadians, of Americans, of England for the English, of France for the French, of Germany for the Germans. Do you think it unreasonable that we the world should raise a cry of Africa for the Africans? The Negro is a man. We represent the new Negro. His back is not yet against the wall. We not want his back against the wall because that would be a peculiar and desperate position. We do not want him there. It is because of this that we are asking for fair compromise. Where the Belgians have control of the Belgian Congo, which they cannot use, they have not the resources to develop nor the intelligence. The French have more territory than they can develop. There's an Africa in which they cannot live at all. So it is for you to come together and give a United States of Africa. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We are not going to be a race without a country. I've never intended it, and we are not going to lose God's confidence in us as men. We are men, human beings, capable of the same acts as any other race, possessing under fair circumstances the same intelligence as any other race. Now Africa's been sleeping, not dead, only sleeping. Today Africa's walking around not only on her feet, but on her brains. You can enslave what was done for 300 years the bodies of men. You can shackle the hands of men. You can shackle the feet of men. You can imprison the bodies of men, but you cannot shackle or imprison the minds of men. Dive down, black men, and dig. Reach up, black men and women, and pull all nature's knowledge to you. Turn ye around and make a conquest of everything, north and south, east and west. And then when you have wrought well, you will have merited God's blessing, you will have become God's chosen people, and naturally you will become leaders of the world. And as you bow down to the white man today, so will other races bow down to you and call you a race of masters because of the superiority of your mind and your achievements. Because no race has the last word on culture and on civilization. They do not know what we are capable of. They do not know what we are thinking. They're thinking in terms of dreadnoughts, battleships, aeroplanes, submarines. You know what we're thinking about? That is our own private business. So give us credit for being able to use our minds. And with people becoming conscious of themselves, determined to use their minds, you do not know to what extent they can go. Liberate the minds of men, and ultimately you will liberate the bodies of men. We love the white race, not for social fellowship, but for the common brotherhood of God intended we should live. What satisfaction can anyone get in being happy and see his brother wallowing in filth, dirt, and disease? How can you be happy living in luxury and your brother's living in disease? And then when you try to help the one out of the disease, the subtle culprit talks about disloyalty. Black men of Carthage, black men of Ethiopia, of Timbuktu, of Alexandria gave the light of civilization to this world. Ethiopia shall stretch forth her hands unto God, and princes shall come out of Egypt. Because classes, nations, races have been quite for over 4 centuries. Who was merely born abuse, insult, humiliation, whose forbearance can only be compared to the prophet Job, has likewise lifted his bowed head and raised it up to God's skies and cried out, I am a man, and demand a man's chance and a man's treatment in this world. But I shall teach the black man to see beauty in his own kind and stop bleaching his skin and otherwise looking like what he's not. Back in the days of slavery, race mixture, miscegenation had occurred because the African woman had no protection from the slave master. Therefore, there is no need for people to themselves freely continue to smack so much of slavery. Said that the race problem will be fixed through better education than black and white come together, that they will never have Africa redeemed. Because if those who like W.E.B. Du Bois believe that the race problem will be solved in America through higher education, they will walk between now and eternity and never see the problem solved. God made man Lord of his creation, gave him possession and ownership of the world. And you have been so darned lazy that you have allowed the other fellow to run away with the whole world, and now he's bluffing you and telling you that the world belongs to him and that you have no part in it. I don't have to apologize to anybody for being black, because God Almighty knew exactly what he was doing when he made me black. If black people knew their glorious past, then they would be more inclined to respect themselves. Yes, you heard of Johnny Walker Red and black. Well, he had his adversities, but he's still going strong. Well, I intend with your help and God's grace to continue, because my work has only just begun. And future generations shall have in their hands the guide by which they shall know the sins of the 20th century. I know, and I know you to believe in time, but we shall wait patiently for 200 years if need be to face our enemies through our posterity. When my enemies are satisfied, in life I shall come back, or in death even to serve you as I served before. In life I shall be the same, in death I shall be a terror to the souls of then count on me to be the real Marcus Garvey I would like to be. If I may come in an earthquake or a plague or a pestilence or as God would have me, then be assured that I shall never desert you and make your enemies triumph over you. Will I not go to hell 1,000,000 times for you? If I die in Atlanta, my work will only just then begin. For I shall live in the physical or the spiritual to see the day of Africa's glory. When I am dead, wrap the mantle of the red, the black, and the green around me, for in the new life I shall rise up with God's grace and blessing to lead the millions up the heights and the triumph that you well know. Look for me in the world when there is storm. Look for me all around you, for with God's grace I shall come back with countless millions of black men and women who have died in America, those who have died in the West Indies, and those who have died in Africa to aid you in the fight for liberty, freedom, and life. Any leadership that teaches you to depend upon another race is a leadership that will enslave you. Any leadership that teaches you to depend upon another race is a leadership that will enslave you. They gave leadership to our foreparents, and that leadership made them slaves. But we have decided to find a leadership of our own to make ourselves free men. Our great scholars, having passed through the colleges and universities, have thrown away the blessed record. Babylon did it. Assyria did it. France under Napoleon did it. Germany under Prince von Bismarck did it. England under America under George Washington did it. Africa with 400 million black people can do it. If you cannot do it, if you are not prepared to do it, then you will die. You race of cowards, you race of imbeciles, you race of good for nothing. If you cannot do what other men have done, what other nations have done, what other races have done, then you had better die. Can we do it? We can do it. We shall do it.
I tell you, reading Marcus Garvey and listening to him are two vastly different things. I can imagine why he was not liked by the powers that be back in the days. All right, I'd like to focus on something that Marcus Garvey said. He speaks a little quickly. Well, he spoke. He's no longer with us in the flesh. But if you listen to the recording, maybe you might have missed some words because Marcus Garvey spoke very quickly. But I'd like to highlight something here. He said, any leadership that teaches you to depend upon another race is a leadership that will enslave you, and he to repeat it. Any leadership that teaches you to depend upon another race is a leadership that will enslave you. They gave leadership to our foreparents, and that leadership made them slaves. Does that sound familiar? Then he said something that's challenging. But we have decided to find a leadership of our own, to make ourselves free men. Our great scholars have advanced through the colleges and universities, have thrown away the blackened record. Babylon did it. Assyria did it. France under Napoleon did it. Germany under Prince von Bismarck did it. America under George Washington did it. Africa with 400 can do it. Then the challenge, if you cannot do it, if you are not prepared to do it, then you will die. Are we prepared? Are we prepared really to take reins as black people and really succeed and come from under the foot of our masters? Are we prepared to do it? If you cannot do it, if you are not prepared to do it, then you will die. No, Marcus Garvey makes a very serious challenge. You race of cowards, you race of imbeciles, you race of good for nothings. If you cannot do what others have done, what other nations, what other races have done, then you had better die. How we feel about what Marcus Garvey said a while ago? If we cannot do it, if we are not prepared to do what other men have done, what other races have done, what other nations have done, then we had better die. And what does Marcus Garvey call you? If you are not prepared to do it, a race of cowards, a race of imbeciles, and a race of good for nothings. If we look at the state of Jamaica today, where we have allowed ourselves to remain under the thumb of the Queen, because we know that the Queen of England is the Queen of Jamaica. We have been governed by their colonial system as it produced. A lot of us are dying. And those who have not died physically have died in spirit. And all of us, for the most part, have died mentally. We do not know how to think. We only know to think what they told us to think. They have told us what to think, but not how to think for ourselves. So whether we die physically, as so much of us are doing, with the kind of crime that we have, because our people have not been educated properly and our teachers have not been invested in. Our economy is a reflection of our education. Crime is a reflection of our economy and our family lives. Our family lives are impacted by the economy and by how we relate to each other, which leads back to education. Are we prepared to do it? Are we prepared for real change instead of depending on those persons who are depending on Queen Elizabeth and the colonial system? The perpetrators of a system that enslaved us and continue to enslave us and rob us of our resources. We are being robbed of our bauxite. We are being robbed of the capital from tourism. And we have been robbed of our educational resources. Our teachers are leaving, and our youth have been taught how to think and how to behave in a society to make us world-class citizens. Are we prepared to do what must be done so that Jamaica can be free, in turn Africa can be free? Do we continue to be cowards and imbeciles and good for nothings? Marcus Garvey asks, can we do it? We can do it, and we shall do it. Now, there's another important thing that Marcus Garvey said. Liberate the minds of men, and you will liberate the bodies of men. Liberate the minds of men, then we will liberate the bodies of men. Our people have not been taught to treasure education, and they have not been taught to treasure and honor themselves. Now, the government, one side of our political divide, JLP, that is presently in power, wants to tell us to see the teachers leaving as a benefit. We can capitalize monetarily on this. Train the teachers, and countries pay them to get our teachers, because we know that money don't trickle down to the average Jamaican. The JLP wants us to believe that it is fine when those teachers leave, because now they can call on retired teachers, and teachers who are still in college in their final year can come and fill the slots. How can you go call for student teachers who have not finished their training to go in the schools? And I want to tell you the hypocrisy, right? Of they were all gears, all forward ahead, invested in passing the Jamaica Teaching Council bill, which states that a teacher is someone who has his or her bachelor's in education, or a bachelor's in another field, and a diploma in education, which means that those people with only their diploma in education would no longer be considered teachers. But now they're going to those same persons who they had planned to outlaw as teachers to stick to teaching the system. Now, what is that? The other side of the divide has some other suggestions. Let me read it. I had trouble bringing up the image on screen, so I'm just going to be reading from. So the other side of the divide, that's the opposition, the political, the PNP, they're saying that we are supposed to consider motor vehicle concessions for teachers, reduce student loan by 5% for every year a teacher stays in the public sector, allow for a special NHT limit, negotiate a package deal with telecoms providers for teachers to receive internet, and so forth. So JLP is saying, make the teacher them go on, we can capitalize on it. Those who stay um, are supposed to learn financial literacy, buy stocks. Now, anybody who knows about the stock market knows that you cannot receive your returns immediately. If you teach teachers in the moment now, if you tell them now to buy stocks, right? The teachers are enough to subsist, and you want them to take from that to buy stocks, right? Now, when you go buy stocks now, and you're not going to see any return for now, because you have to give that like at least 10 years, 5 if you're lucky, depending on how much you buy and how the company is doing, but at least 10 years. That cannot help teachers in the now. So what kind of foolishness the government telling teachers? That's their solution? And to use the very same people that you're planning to incriminate with the JTC bill to fill the slots in the classroom. That's their answer. And the other side now wants to give us a lot of freeness. But the UIC has a plan for education, real education. Now, Marcus Garvey has challenged us to take the reins. And can we do it? We have to do it. And we have spoken a lot about the education plan, which we call LEAP, the Learning Enrichment Advanced Program. I'd like to look at some aspects of LEAP that will benefit our teachers more than this bread and circus, as Douglas Harper mentioned in the chat. More than this bread and circus that they're coming with for the Jamaican people. Now, our Learning Enrichment Advanced Program, that is our education plan, LEAP, is built on 8 pillars. But I'm going to be focusing especially on those that cater to our teachers. I've been mentioning some though. And although the first one I'm going to mention is indirectly related to the teachers and their to mention it. Now, the first aspect or the first pillar of LEAP looks at an Afro-centric curriculum. Now, what that does, or what that will do, is teach our students real African history. And when I say real African history, I say real African history, not just slavery and going forward, but real African history. If we listened to the first part of Marcus Garvey's speech, he spoke about if the black man is made in God's image, then God must in some respect be black. That is not something we hear right now in our schools, not even in our churches, but it causes you to think. And if we had gone further, we would have seen where Marcus Garvey would have highlighted blacks were writing, creating language, while the white race was still running around like savages. We will learn the technology that our race has created long before other races. We would have learned how modern governance is really taken from the example from early African civilizations. So real African history will teach our people to be proud of themselves. And as Marcus Garvey said, we teach them not to bleach to resemble other people. Why is it that our people are bleaching? Because they want to be like the white person. They do not know the value of themselves. Now, as we said, an Afro-centric curriculum will teach real African history and world history, because we're going to be focusing on African history to the exclusion of other worldviews. We'll be looking at world history. Shandy Ellis is asking, how do we join the video call? Can the link be sent to Mr. Ellis, so he can join. All right. Now, the Afro-centric curriculum looks at three domains. One, understanding self, understanding human behavior, that's two, and three, understanding money. Now, if our teachers are taught how to understand the money and not just sent to go buy stocks, then they would have learned how to really make money work for them instead of working for money. Our colleague Vincenzo Crawford makes a very valid statement when he says, how can we influence you to see teachers as role models when teachers are living a life of poverty? They don't see the financial payoff of being a teacher. So why respect somebody who seems like they're barely making it in life? Now, if we really show our nation how to be financially responsible and financially successful, no matter what their circumstances are, then that empowers us as a nation. Can we do it? We will do it. Understanding human behavior will help us to form better relationships with each other. And understanding ourselves will promote our sense of understanding of others. So we have less conflict and we know how to work together. Now, one of the things that bothered us, Garvey, was Africans not coming together to build Africans. He had asked a question further on in his speech. Don't we have two hands like the white man? Don't we have two eyes and a brain like the Chinese? I'm paraphrasing here. If they can come together, the Belgians and so forth, why is it that Africans can't come together? We do not know how to relate with people. So the first pillar of our education plan will look at an Afrocentric curriculum that will teach us how to understand self, understand human behavior, and understand money. Shannon Ellis says, what we need to first do is unlearn what we have been taught by our oppressors. That is so right, Ellis. Johnson Tiger Shark says, it's the very same behavior with Trinidad brother. Few will see it and will not. It's real. Well, I'm convinced that Jesus Christ is black. That's why he was rejected by Jewish people. There's some evidence to show that he was dark skinned or olive skinned. But whether he's black or Middle Eastern, we know that Jesus wasn't white. But that's the image that we have been taught to see. Georgia 123 says this is the government's economic plan to collect or benefit from the monies Jamaicans in the diaspora send back to Jamaica. What kind of an economic plan is this? This is not a plan. This is a pot down foolishness. I won't even say patty shop because normally say they're running patty shop efficient. At least the ones that I have seen. No. Another aspect of LEAP that we want to look at, how this will benefit the teachers. A master's scholarship, a scholarship to the master's level. Every teacher must be fully equipped to teach our students. And what the UIC will do when we are elected to government is give each teacher a scholarship to the master's level. Now, we don't say free scholarship because everything must be paid for. And the teachers will be paying for it. How? Through the 10% income tax that we charge. That we will put into play. A 10% income tax. We are determined that the 10% income tax and 10% sales tax, also called the GCT. Through this, the teachers will repay the government for the scholarship. And when a teacher is educated at that level, that puts them now in the position to negotiate their salary. You can't be paying a master's person pennies. Another thing that we have in store for teachers and students for Jamaica as a whole is a public education system. Now, we say now that the education system is public, but that is not really so. What we propose is an education system that the public, the people, are invested in. All right, so what does it look like? Now, although we have been used to the current government dictated system for so long, we see it as normal and ideal, despite it robbing us of any real choice. Under our plan, the current government-owned system will be transformed to become truly public through what we will call a social education enterprise, SEE. All of these schools will now be converted into what we can term an education industry, a social enterprise that's owned by Jamaicans. And the Jamaican public will be offered full ownership and benefits in these enterprises. Now, Jamaicans will be free to identify land for the purpose of building schools, and those persons who want to become owners of the enterprise will have to fulfill certain requirements. First, they have to be Jamaican by birth or by being born from Jamaicans or grandparents. And then they have to go through a financial literacy and governance program. We have to ensure that they are able to manage and administer these institutions properly. Now, the program will last for a minimum of 6 months, and students even also can be shareholders. And after they have passed school, within 6 months of completing school, students now will have to complete a project in order to receive the shares from the business. So school will become like a business where each person has shares in, and as shareholders, we will have a say in how school is run. What that will do is ensure that schools that are performing well will be the schools that get students, and schools that are not performing so well will have to increase their efficiency in order to retain students. But this will also contribute to a better education, because when competition increases efficiency and quality, with this government, with this business like model, and we will have ensured that all schools will want to stay relevant and ensure that they're giving the best education. But we won't leave it to that. All schools will have to teach a basic curriculum that the government will provide, and will supervise to ensure that the schools are indeed teaching the core subjects that they should be teaching at the level that they should. So we ensure quality. But then we know with the competition, they will heighten the quality that we would have already set up. Now, with this, teachers who will already have had their masters will be able to negotiate their salary instead of settle for pennies from a government that say can get this and not a cent more. No, this way we give the freedom to the teachers, and we take them from this subjection from an administration that doesn't care whether they live or they die. Now, under this system, we will have a variety of schools. We will have schools that, for example, will cater to agriculture. We'll have schools that cater to music. We'll have schools that cater to industry. Right now, and manufacturing. Right now, Jamaica doesn't really produce anything. But what if we have schools that caters to the manufacturing of automobiles? Because the school is now freed from government restriction. The school would be free to seek funding outside of even the school fee but seek funding from all approved areas so that they can actually fund these programs. Now, in another live, I shall try to do it for the next live next Friday. I want to show you how the public run education system, which will see the return of school fees instead of the free education, we will return to school fees. Parents will pay for education, but we are going to show how this will be actually cheaper than what obtains now. For education will actually allow for greater quality education, better payment of the teachers, and less spending by both the parents and the government, even if the government were supposed to pay 70% of every school fee in the country. Because under UIC government, those parents who are unable to afford the tuition for their children will be totally taken care of. All they'll have to do is work and pay back the government through their 10% income tax. They'll be totally taken care of. But if every student in Jamaica could not pay, government pays a part of it, percent. We will show even then how it's cheaper both for the government and for the parents that when compared to the present system. Sounds weird? People pay school fee, yet education there's more quality, plus education is cheaper and more affordable. Or we'll be looking at that in the next live. But this is the system that we want to bring into being. These are some aspects of the system where we'll be empowering teachers, allowing them to get even more compensation, and allowing the public to have a greater say in the education system and increasing the quality of education in the process. Now, does this sound like something that is better for Jamaica? Imagine you have your child and you realize that your child is good at dance, and you can send your child to a school of dance that will teach the child to develop his or her ability while at the same time ensuring that they pass their math, their communication, their science, which will be core subjects, by the way. You have a child who is naturally good at making stuff, right? And instead of killing their creativity, as obtains in the current system, because it makes no allowance to help students like this, there will be schools that teach construction, schools that teach manufacturing, assembly. And we're talking about regular high schools, because the variety in the system, when you own the system, will allow the child to develop that way. Teachers themselves will be taught how to teach, how to think, and how to teach others to think, instead of teaching them what to think, instead of teaching facts and figures and making education a numbers game and a memory game. Who can remember this fact, get a number, a percentage, and then that number is supposed to help them to get a job. When they reach in the working world, they can't do anything. We're looking at real education, teaching of skills. For those students who leave high school or college and they're not in a job, or they're not going to further their education, there's apprenticeship, teaching of skills again. Through this system. Hello? Oh, that must have been a big sorry. Through this system, we'll finally get the education our country deserves, that our people deserve. Can we do it? We must do it. Or if we don't do it, then as Marcus Garvey says, then we had better die because it don't make any sense. Unless Jamaica is a nursery. You know, nursery in agriculture where we put the seeds in and they grow, and then when they're mature enough, we plant them in the ground. Shall we settle with Jamaica being a nursery? We grow them to ship them out to other countries? That makes no sense. We have to make this country a better place. We have to make Jamaica a country that brings out the best in our people. And how will we do this? We have a UIC WhatsApp group, and today I saw some people talking about revolution. It's either revolution or the ballot. The thing is, revolution by the bullet can bring in a government that is worse off than before. And it's violence. Violence does not beget anything good. Violence only begets violence. But violence does not beget peace. And a government that achieves power by force cannot be depended on to not rule the people by force. We don't want a government to rule us. We want a government that facilitates progress, that facilitates our liberty. And when man is free, then man is capable of much. Now, are we free when our government dictates to our teachers, you shall not get one more cent? We should not have been in that position from the first place. Empower our people to negotiate their value and then hold them accountable to give value. That is the system that the UIC is here to facilitate with your help. Now, what can you do? Now, as Jovan Harris says, whole heap of work is a whole heap of work. It is going to be an arduous task, yet it is not impossible. Thank you for the closing statements. When do we want to start? Time is of the essence. All right. Harris has made the call of action. Now, what can you do? No, our people don't know a lot of what we said. Oh, by the way, the opening video that we had looked at, where our educational resources were squandered to the state of indebtedness that we have today. There is a YouTube channel, J Squared. I want you to look at the documentary there that explains fully why Jamaica is why it is, the corruption that we have gone through from our so-called national heroes, that's the political national heroes, to know how they have mashed up the system and caused to the deterioration of not only the country but our minds. So check out that documentary. But what can you do to bring this into being? Like, share, and subscribe. That is one of the things, so that people can know. If you're not educated, then you can't do anything about it. There's another video here. Why are they leaving? On YouTube Liberty TV. That's another one to share so that people will know. Spread the word. What else do we do? As much as you can, volunteer with the UIC. Go to our website, uicjamaica.com, click volunteer, and volunteer your time as much as possible. Donate so that we can be empowered to work on your behalf. Now, the thing with UIC is that none of us here want to be elected for ourselves. I don't care if anybody votes for me or not, as long as we vote for the UIC. If another person comes in my division, in my constituency, who is for the UIC and for Jamaica and can do a better job than I can, we want you to donate so that we can go forward. Not necessarily myself or another candidate, but the UIC and its plans and its governance structure and its mandates on behalf of the Jamaican people. So donate. We can do it with 6 million people, all hands on deck. We surely can. And we can take the colonial power from those who are in the seat and put it to work on behalf of the people. So people, share the information. Volunteer when you can. We have a comment here by Natalie. Everything starts in the minds. If you can succeed with your mind, you can reach all sorts of altitudes. That's true. And we need to liberate the minds of our people by sharing this information. Education party, you won't find another party like this nowhere else on planet Earth. Vote UIC, the real change we've been waiting for. Vote UIC. That is the ultimate action we want you to take, because we cannot enact these plans without being voted in. But we need people to know about the UIC, and we need to be empowered to do the work on behalf of the people. Donate, share, subscribe, volunteer. Lion, I like what you say here. If you don't want to do it for yourself, do it for your kids and grandkids. I am doing this for my child and any future children I may have. I do not want them to grow up in a society where a man will kill you for nothing. Just yesterday in my community, a young man was killed, a taxi driver beloved by the community, because he told not to let his goat go in his farm because he has a farm too. And because the man don't want a goat to eat down when things, in nephew took a bladed weapon and shoved it in his chest, carved out his chest and killed him. We don't want a Jamaica like that. We want a Jamaica where people are able to work out their problems without violence, where people don't have to hustle and wonder where the next bread coming from. Because not only do they keep more of their money, not only are they empowered and taught how to build businesses with their talents, but when the money comes, they know how to make it grow instead of just waste it. We need to tackle crime, and this can only be done with us empowering others with the message of UIC. Mr. Patterson, the real reincarnation of Marcus in this time. We are very thankful. Pastors had the same thought Sunday at the commemoration in Irie FM when we had a commemoration of Marcus Garvey. There were some Rastas who had the same thought. Mr. Patterson, the real reincarnation of Marcus Garvey. And I want to challenge you with what Marcus Garvey said. We can do it. We must do it. And we shall do it. Until we meet again, people. One Jamaica. Wow, good.